So moving on now, the year 2000 was a record-breaking one for African tech startups, according to the African Tech Startups Funding Report. 397 companies secured $701.5 million worth of investment. The report details how Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt are the premier investment destinations on the continent. We can easily term this one of the gains of COVID-19. So how do we consolidate on this gain and engage especially the youth and boost the African economy? We have Olumide Soyombo, co-founder Bolton Capital and Blue Chip Tech Limited, to share his thoughts on that. Hello, Mr. Soyombo. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So how much of a problem or challenge is funding in the African tech space?
I would say it's improved over the years. I remember when I started investing in startups in 2014, we thought about setting up like an accelerator, copying the typical Silicon Valley model of calling for entries, bringing startups into a hub, and work with them for 3 months with a hope to putting them in front of bigger investors, having had some early traction, only to find out that in the market then in 2014, there were no bigger investors. So you had to put a second seed into those companies. So it's very interesting to see how we've come from that in 2014 to a situation where today interesting founders and super founders can then raise early seed funding, even pre-seed funding of a couple of thousands of dollars in a few days. So I think over the last couple of years, I mean, even your entry point, you talked about the attention and the funding coming to African startups now. It has improved over the years, and it can only get better from here on.
All right, so we have a lot of youths who are tech savvy. They have a lot of creative and innovative ideas. What practical steps can move these ideas to reality?
Well, I think the first thing I tell everyone who sets out or who says, hey, I have this idea, or I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to build this thing out. The first thing I usually say to them is, what bet have you taken on yourself? And what risk have you taken on yourself? Because you need to have taken a risk on yourself before anybody else would believe in you. So I first say, okay, you need to get out there and take that risk on yourself. Is either maybe leaving a job to start your own thing, and then iterate slowly, right? So you have people saying, I have an idea, but I'm looking for an investor. Why is an investor going to back you when all you have is just an idea? What have you done about that idea? What steps have you taken? So what I tell entrepreneurs is iterate slowly, get something out into the market, listen to the customers, and then come back again and iterate again. And that's the way to build stuff. I always tell people that the only way you can know is to do. So you have to go out there to do, and then investors then see your early traction and then can come and back you.
Well, saying that there are numerous opportunities in the tech space, what should be imputed into the education curriculum in Africa, for instance, to bring up a new generation of individuals with a mindset of creating employment and not coming out of school to seek employment?
Well, I think first for me is, I think we also have to change that narrative of seeking employment as being, or going for entrepreneurship over seeking employment as either or, right? Because some of the very interesting founders we backed, actually people who've worked in the company before, seen a gap, and then decided to go after it. So I encourage even folks before starting out to gain experience in an industry, and that usually gives them a sure footing or some sort of sure footing to go out and explore. So maybe they've seen a gap in the company they're working at, and then they can then set up a company to go and tackle that gap specifically. But that said, in terms of our education system, you find out that our education needs to start focusing on experiences that promote innovation, right? Experiences and materials that teach people how to innovate, how to iterate. I'm seeing also a lot in some of the private universities, and I hope that will translate also into some of our public universities in Nigeria, where they're bringing out courses on entrepreneurship to start teaching people how to get ready for entrepreneurship, even as they're in universities. I think those are some of the key things that we need to look at in our educational system.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Shiombo. Mr. Olumide Shiombo is co-founder, Bolton Capital and Blue Chip Tech, joining us to share his thoughts on funding startups on the continent. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.